Hi, and thanks for watching this review of the Tekut Ares, which is a large, very large, fixed blade, Tonto style knife. My short take on this is buy the knife. That's the short review. This is a very well made, incredibly affordable bargain. This is not a cheap knife. It is an affordable one. Something that you would easily pay way more for, just for namesake and name recognition. So just get it, because you can get this online now on Amazon for about 30 bucks, if that, with shipping included. So that's it. Here's the long version and the extended detail, starting with why I got this knife. I didn't know anything about Tekut. Never heard of him before, but was at a gun show almost 2 years ago now, actually. And just the profile, the look of this knife alone was just really impressive, really cool. I know there's a couple of manufacturers that make this style of, I guess, Tonto type blade knife in almost the same sort of dimensions. But I hadn't really seen many of them in real, but I just needed a basic, inexpensive, but effective knife for outdoors use, even that was sharp enough for finer cuts, something that if I had to, I could easily clean and dress an animal or fish, but then could do a little bit of fine work with, but just kind of a work knife. That's basically it, a large work knife. Obviously, this particular design, a Tonto knife, doesn't lend itself to bushcraft necessarily. The more rounded blades are what people are gravitating towards for good reason. But this gets the job done. I paid a fair price for it. I mean, I paid $45. Again, you can get them for less, but I don't regret spending what I did, because I have used this knife for batoning. I've used it to whittle. I've used it to dig holes, and I have to be honest with you. I was really kind of concerned, again, because this design isn't made for that. The other reason why I was concerned is that this knife, other than its profile is, and I've waited to show you this aspect of the knife until last, is that it's got a single side edge. I don't know what the terminology is. I'm not a knife expert, but basically this is angled on one edge. The back side is flat. It's got a little, you can see a little bit of the coating has been removed, because you do have to address the back side in order to properly sharpen this side. So, you know, this single edge, as I'll call it, I'm sure people that are more knowledgeable will correct me in the comments. That side, that type of design, you may see in like AK-47 bayonets and other knives, and they're not known to hold their edge well. And they aren't as effective as something, a knife that's with both sides. I don't know what you call it, but in either event, that was a concern of mine. But again, at $45, the weight and carry of this was so effective, so that I figured, you know what, if it doesn't stand up to the rigors of bushcraft, it's a cool knife to have. It's still practical, and I could possibly transport this over to my home defense personal protection kit, and that's what I've pretty much done. Things to note that with the batoning, this is what you're looking at as the knife as I've cleaned it up and sharpened it, and I've only done it a couple of times, just to sort of see how the knife on its own would age and wear without a whole lot of maintenance. I know that may not be the best tactic to use with a knife that you really want to take care of and use for critical purposes. But I wanted to find out, you know, just how much this 7CR17 MOV steel with this design would hold up, and it held up pretty well. You won't be able to see from this video, but this camera, I don't know, maybe you can. As you might expect, I did get some considerable nicks into this knife, a few nicks and sizable scratches. There were certain areas of the knife that wore pretty, I won't say pretty quickly, but they needed a lot more attention when it came time to sharpen it. And I wanted to see, I wanted that to happen. I knew that was going to be just what comes with the turf with using a knife hard out in the field. But I was pleasantly surprised, as I'm sure you can. Yeah, there's a little nick there. As you can, even from this bad camera, it recovered and it's back ready for work. This paracord is something that I added to the knife, obviously. I had some scrap cord left over, and because this was for primarily bushcraft, you can almost never have too much knife. So I left this extended lanyard on there, which is just fed off of the wrap that I did for a handle. I've got pretty large hands, so to have the extra I don't know, width or girth that this paracord adds just makes it a little bit more comfortable. But even without it, and I have tried this with my hands, wet bare hands, before I added this, the texture of, I don't know if you could pick this up, I have no idea what the material of this the cover for the handle is, but it is a great material, incredibly sturdy and strong. But again, this is just something I added. The piece of cord that came with it, there was a piece there that you could barely even wrap around your leg, and that was, I guess, part of the purpose of it. Was really crappy. So the nylon or poly, whatever rope that you can get at any hardware store, it was not that high quality at all. So I just ditched it. I had no purpose for it. But obviously there's the hole here. You've got some grooves built into both here and, yeah, mostly on this side of the handle or the hilt of this full tang knife. We've got another lashing point here, which is great. Obviously, this is for more survival purposes. If you needed another anchor point, if you were going to make a spear out of this, just another place to anchor the cord in order to attach this blade to a pole, piece of wood, or whatever for jabbing purposes. So that's the knife in and of itself. And it came, of course, with a Kydex sheet. This Kydex sheet is, I'd say it's, again, I'm not a Kydex expert, but, you know, it's pretty prevalent and all over the place. I would say that this Kydex sheath is, I'd say it's mid-grade quality. It's not on par with some of the higher end, higher price point knives, but it is sturdy enough. I mean, I have total confidence in it. And you'll notice that it has a couple of rivets. Originally, this came with, the sheath had a nylon portion attached to it so that you could hang it from your belt, or I guess, as you can see from this backside, you can even, the backside, you could even molly it up to other gear if you wanted to. But this isn't the best grade of nylon. It's strong. You know, I'm confident that it would have held, but it's that foldy kind of nylon, and I prefer something a little bit stiffer. In retrospect, I kind of wish that I put it back. I would have left it there, and I may remove these rivets and put it back on the knife. But in the meantime, the other challenge was that having this on the knife really interfered with sheathing it and taking it in and out of the sheath with this cord added to it. I don't have that problem now that that's gone. And because you've got these other rivets that are large enough, just large enough that you can squeeze a piece of paracord through, that's a bit of a tongue twister, and these other slots in the knife, I've really played around with it and tried different lashing scenarios to fit different purposes. What I've done in the past is I've set this up, and I'll probably, if you guys want, I can do a YouTube video, but there's tons of other ones out there for other knives, so you may not need this one for this knife because it's kind of all the same. But in either event, I set this up, I rigged it in such a way that I could carry it from a belt either vertically or horizontally from behind. And I have to say, a knife this long, and in the state that I live in, it is legal to carry a knife this long. There are no state mandates on or limitations on what size knife you can carry. It was more comfortable wearing it in a horizontal position on the small of my back. But even though that it's very comfortable to carry a knife that way, this knife that way, it's not very safe. Not because the knife is going to fall out or anything, but, you know, even if you don't even have to be in a self-defense situation where you're tumbling on the ground and you're struggling and you're fighting for your life. What if you slip? What if you fall? You know, you don't want solid steel on the lower portion of your spine. I mean, bad things have happened to people that carry their firearms or knives that way. Not because of anything drastic, but just to fall on the ground and to have that hit is not a good thing. And obviously with those horizontal and vertical lashing points all in one with the weave that I did, it would also make it possible to carry this if you had other sorts of gear that you wanted to lash it to instead. This is that 7CR17 MOV, which, as I understand it, is a variation of, I think, 400 series steel. So, you know, at its core, it's good tool grade steel, stainless, with really good corrosion resistance. The 7CR17 MOV element, I think it adds some material. I think it's vanadium or something. And again, those who know can correct either my reference or the pronunciation of it. But in either event, the idea is that it adds to the strength and durability of the metal, which again is really, really important for any blade, especially one that you know has a design that is inherently a little bit weaker. And by that I mean the fact that this is sharpened, or it only has one angle there. You know, there's basically, this side basically has three angles. It's got this primary section, these three share the same angle, although they're in different portions of the blade. And then the third is the very small angle between here and there. This one, this side, only has two angles. This one and the same that these three share. It doesn't have the extra angle for that edge. You can add, you can, with all things, especially metal, you can modify this. You can add an extra edge to this. Okay. The challenge is that, and as I found through sharpening, is that the manufacturer didn't make it that way, right? Knives that have double-sided edge, there's equal amount of materials on both sides. But when we look at this, and hopefully this will show up, this is not symmetrical. There's a little bit more material on this side than there is here. Okay, that's really, I really sound crazy, like you can't see that, but trust me folks, there is the distance between this far edge and here, that angle is greater than from here to there. Again, I apologize for the lack of ability to zoom in, but just trust me, it's there. So what that means is you basically got less material on this side to work with. So that if you were to add that, it's going to have sort of a mathematical sort of effect on the amount of material left on this side. And I'm not convinced that that would give you a stronger blade, right? Even though the design of having two angled edges in and of itself is stronger to this, that's still relative to the amount of material that you have to work with, I think. Again, now you guys are going to kill me on this review, but you know, all the knives people, but you know, I welcome that constructively because it just gives us all, myself, the person that made this video, and everybody who watches it, you know, maybe some more knowledge. So that is it. Get this knife. It's great. It will work. If you don't want to hang your life on it or think it's just the end-all be-all, the greatest one knife that you could ever have in your life, it may not be that, but I tell you what, it's definitely money's worth based on my experience, and I'm looking forward to getting another one, and I think you should too. Thanks for watching.